That's one item. Number 2, update on the San Jose Police Department Unmanned Aerial System UAS draft policy. So, Marie, you have a question first?
No, not a question. It's, I was on listening to NPR, and we were on last, I think it was Tuesday, at 5:30 time in the evening. I was bringing the dog back to my daughter's house, so it was 5:30, and it was all about us, what we did.
I heard Ernest talk about it on the radio, yes, maybe the morning segment too.
It was great.
But anyhow, so what's up?
The ad hoc committee.
All the tears were not fun, no.
Well, if the paper, that's what I'm trying to find out. Has the paper actually been submitted yet? So Ernest, what's up?
So, yeah, what commissioners are referring to is I got a request from KQED radio to do an interview last Friday. And unfortunately, I couldn't schedule it until Monday. The reporter was on deadline, and so we moved it to having a phone conversation on the weekend, which was Easter weekend, a terrible weekend, and moved it to Monday. So I spent a good amount of time with the reporter, and wish I could have heard it, because I, always am cognizant of the fact that I was speaking from staff side about what the commission had been doing, and hopefully I didn't misspeak on anything. I just simply laid out the timeline, what the actions you've taken, and the fact that one of the things that you needed to finalize today was the commission hasn't seen your what happened in between the time the last meeting and this meeting has occurred was that the document you saw was revised in minor ways, so you've got that final copy today, and then the letter was changed. For the original cover letter at the attorney's request, because she wanted to see what the differences were between what was submitted to the Public Safety Committee, which you have a copy of, and what the differences were. And so you've got that letter, and I've sent it to the staff that will submit it to Public Safety before June 30th. My understanding is that it'll go to the Public Safety Committee meeting in May. And then after that, Public Safety will decide when it goes back to, when it goes agendized for council discussion. So what staff would like to have today is just a formal motion that this is, you agree with the letter, the final letter, that lays out the differences, and there's not that many differences. And then that makes it an official report then. It's a very simple process. You've already seen most of it, and then it will. I'll keep you noticed as to when it's going to go to Public Safety. I believe it will be the May meeting because they've got a deadline for June 30th, and then you're done at that point until it goes to council. If it goes to council, the reason I say if it goes to council was that Public Safety could recommend that it work on it some more, do whatever, but the next logical step will be, it will go to council. I can't tell you when that's going to occur. I had a question about that today, and I said, well, if it goes to Public Safety in May, then June is pretty much all discussion by council on the budget. Potentially it could go to council in June, but it also could go in August or later, and then that's when the council would approve it or not. So there you go. You're pretty much at the tail end of this process. If you can just make a motion to approve the letter, then you're official at that point then, and you're done.
Do I have a motion to approve the letter?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
For all of Oakland has been downsized to just the original Port of Oakland. There will be more citizen oversight and citizen review board that will be able to have a good way with regular people who might have questions and worries and need information about the new DAC and the Port of Oakland.
About the ad hoc committee or the process we went through, or why we got here, or how we, or just move on and get on to the next subject, go home earlier?
No, a brief comment. There were
5 of us on the ad hoc committee that drafted this letter from the commissioner. It was a body of work, took some time, one meeting and some discussion, lots of emails, and at least 2 meetings here and some public outreach. All of that was a process to build a product and deliver it. And it was raised by Gary, discussed by me and others, that we should, the ad hoc committee at least, draft a simple lessons learned and comments about the process to add to the body of knowledge for those participating in other projects like this, so that we can engage everybody and develop kind of an embedded process of continuous improvement, as opposed to invent it all over every time it shows up. This might include how we format it, how we go about gathering information, frame it, and discuss with staff, each other, and the council.
I want to add a comment that the folks that read your document were impressed by the thinking and work that went into it. Considering that it's a group effort, that's quite a remarkable statement. You know, usually a writer takes leadership and then, you know, everybody kind of edits, but it sounded like you guys all, it's a pretty cohesive document. So, like I said, staff was impressed by it, and what I told other staff was that I'm not surprised by the quality of the work that you put into it. And you're going to have to face that same challenge in item number 4 to this, because you've got a budget letter you need to put together that will go to, that's part of your responsibility. So as you talk about lessons learned, it's going to come into play fairly quickly. But anyway, that's the comments I wanted to make, so that it was not unnoticed that you did a really good job. So there you go.
I just wanted to add a comment that I think it's especially noteworthy that we're releasing our report right after the time when one of the exigent situations occurred. Because when the officer was shot, one of the things that could have sped the entire process, they had an entire neighborhood closed and people who were not allowed to go home overnight. And if they had been able to get a view of that balcony and see that the person who did the shooting was already down, that would have changed the situation dramatically. So this is very good and appropriate timing for a report.
Yeah, and I want to piggyback on that, because a comment I got from a police officer was that if they had the ability to activate and use a drone, because the body laid out there quite a while, and they couldn't see it. And so they said, you know, if we had a drone to fly over, it would have been easier to, you know, perhaps remove the body and, you know, see what activity, like you said, on the balcony. So they actually did use one of the robots to go out there, but it wasn't a drone. It's what the city's already authorized to use. So, you know, just to let you know.
You couldn't see it with a helicopter?
Sorry?
They could not see it from a helicopter?
You know, I don't know. I mean, these are comments that I've got from folks that were, I guess, in the area. But, you know, clearly that would have been an ideal situation. Because we talked about exits and circumstances, and there you go.
Yep. Gary?
Yeah, I would just like to comment on the external factors that impacted what we did, and understanding there were several external reviews. You know, I had them identified with legal, city manager. We had that committee, the public safety committee, whatever it was. And the timing of it, we did not know what their review process was, what their turnaround was going to be. We got comments back from, I don't know who it was, either legal or the city manager. I couldn't quite tell where they came from, but the timing of them. So it's not that the external reviews are not warranted or necessary, but they need in the future, I think, to be identified when they're going to be, when they get it, what their turnaround time is going to be, so we can incorporate it in the planning of the document. So we needed to back off more to accommodate these reviews. So it's not a question of not having a review, it's a question of identifying the review and what the turnaround time is gonna be.
Because that was gonna be my complaint. The ad hoc committee, we got our document done, it was about 3 days after the last public meeting, so that the public would have, so that the commission would have like 2 weeks to review it, and then 1 day before the meeting, legal came in and said, oh, you have to change this, that, and they redlined the whole thing, was not a, they kept my name, and that was about it. I mean, a lot of it was just stylistic, so instead of being the committee's report, it was the report of the committee, but nonetheless, it was redlined. Everything was redlined except my name at the end. And then I prepare a presentation chart for this meeting here to go through the red lines, and then we're told, oh, we cannot discuss them because it's not finalized. And so the whole meeting was
Awkward.
So that process needs to be defined, okay? And you know, whatever it is, fine, you know, we can play the game as long as we know what the rules are.
So
We didn't know what the rules were.
So then we collected that input from the meeting, from our public meeting here, and the lawyers' suggestions, and came up with the final version, which we submitted. And then the cover letter had to be rewritten to say what the changes were that they wanted to put in. And so that's why the cover letter got rewritten again. So anyhow, that's what the process is. The cover letter is half again longer than it was before to document the differences between what we had in the first place and what the final thing is, and highlight the differences between ours and the police report that had not been released at the time that we released ours. And so we had to do a comparison to see what the differences were. And by the way, our report has a few extra things in it to further preclude its use as surveillance. So not only says it won't be used for surveillance, it also says you can't have the camera in it and you keep it under control, so even if it did have a memory chip in it, nobody can access it. So we put a belt and, in the aerospace terms, we say it's belt and suspenders. You do 2 things at least to make sure that nothing can go wrong. We included the use of the reporting of the exigent situations, not only the city council, but the independent police officer. That was one phrase I heard you mention on the morning news. So,
Well, they asked me what was the biggest, not the nuances, because I said you didn't go to the technical, you didn't argue any of that out. They said, what's a major difference? And I said, well, because you had pointed it out yourself, you know, in the differences that you wanted the police auditor in that process because of listening to the concerns that in general you agreed with the police department recommendations for the use, no differences there. They said, so what's the major difference? And I said, well, aside from the ones that are listed out in the cover letter, one that is a major difference is adding a layer of other oversight,
independent
which is
review.
the police auditor. So I tried to be true to what you had said, because it's right in the cover letter, I mean. So.
And I agree, and I think that is an important thing to be added in it, and I feel comfortable with it. I know some people asked whether it was appropriate for the independent police auditor, but like I said, we checked with her the day of, and she was pleased with that, so. Anyhow,
All right, so
great.
There's a thing about the timing of that. So after all your work, after you being up till 1 o'clock so that you'll have that document here for us, for that person to come in and disrupt this meeting like that, I really personally, thought it was, there's a transparency thing. There's a sunshine part of it, that was, it shouldn't have happened that way. We were like little kids, with egg on our face. And that was really ridiculous. And it shouldn't have happened. And I don't think that it will ever happen again.
I hope not. Yeah, so anyhow, they should have timing restrictions on them too. I mean, the city, the sunshine thing about having 3 days to respond, we should have some time to respond too. So please get comments to us in a timely fashion.
Clear.
Yes.
I think much of this was done on the fly, and different people from different parts of the city staff and ourselves, with the police and the agenda and all. It was it was a lot of work thrown together and compressed quite well, except for these issues. And I think much of that was learning on the fly. And what bothered us and what frustrated us, true. But at the same time, I think those involved on both sides learned a lot, and hopefully we'll carry it through an improved process in the future. It'd be nice to kind of make that a matter of record so that when if people, we have new commissioners and city staff changes positions, they can look and say, oh, we need time, this is a process, these are steps.
And I think we did a good product. We had a lot of public input, and we incorporated it all into the thing. I'm proud of the product.
I think what, David put together too is a good summary overview of, typically, what a good typical process could be, for working into another ad hoc committee.
Okay.
Do we have that?
So, anyhow, moving on. So,
Larry, I was just going to ask, so is this the letter you were talking about that got rewritten?
yes.
So I guess maybe that's part of the lessons learned sort of thing is, what is the work of the commission and what's the work of the organization, kind of the administration? Because part of what the commission's role is to put forward recommendations and thoughtful analysis, and I think this is very well done. But to go through and then turn over, or to have ripped out of our hands and people ghostwriting actively and then saying this is what you will say, really is not the commission.
Exactly.
It's the administration.
Which is why the motion was to disregard almost every edit that they made.
Yeah.
And we went back to the original. So what
But
you
I
see
mean-
there is the original with one or two minor changes.
Yeah. Good work.
So, thank you.